Hi, I'm Adeline Kueh. I'm a visual artist. I like to look at particular subject matters that are often overlooked, specifically rituals or crafting elements within the home. For this show called Felt, Love, Remedies and Textures, I am looking at particular love languages that are familiar to my family as well as other Asian families. For example, how do you say I love you without having to say I love you? Asian families, at least for my family, the questions that are often related to care would be, have you eaten? Are you cold? And these questions are then followed by actions to take care of the intended persons. So it could be a cup of tea, Milo, some food that are being prepared, or coming to you with some blankets and preparing of a dish that is nourishing and comforting. As a child growing up, my dad was with the agriculture department. That meant that every 2 years we would relocate from a town to a city. What was exciting was the fact that I was very exposed to different surroundings. I was free to roam in different parts of the mini forest or jungle, and I learned very early on to forage for food that are edible. So I was usually the one who would be tasked to find some paku or fiddleheads and midin, and that would be our stir fry, our dinner basically. With a mother who is still a seamstress, I was exposed to many different sewing skills and techniques just by osmosis, because you grow up hanging around her, learning a lot of the technical elements but not knowing what they're called, of course. It was only later on when I started teaching at LaSalle in the late 90s that I was learning those technical terms formally by attending technical classes. The inspiration for the rosettes came from the last trip I did before COVID hit us, and I had taken back a vintage patchwork blanket as well as the rosette pieces that my mom, grandmother and aunt had made from the 60s to the 80s. And it was particularly meaningful because, with the travel ban and distance and separation that occurred during the 2 years primarily, I started looking at what was meaningful when we had so much time on our hands. Also, I was reflecting on the various practices that we're doing. And so for me, when I was invited to be part of the STPI residency, Singapore Tyler Print Institute's residency, it was particularly meaningful for me to use the two items, the blanket and the rosettes, as my starting point to explore what could be made. Of course, with the residency, I worked on larger rosettes with Swiss voile or rubia that was the material used for kabaya making. But for this particular show, and increasingly, I was trying to also go back to being more sustainable, being more ecologically minded, because in the production of art making there's so much wastage. So going back to the smaller skirt size, 9 centimeter square or 9 centimeter diameter scrap fabric and rosettes made out of it meant that there is a call or a reminder about perhaps we could be more sustainable in our practice. And it harkens to a time and practices that were from the past and past generations that were more conscious about what was in and around us, using materials that are readily available without having to waste. From the overwhelming support that I had over the opening weekend, it was really heartening to see various persons talking about how they could relate to ideas of comforting recipes for the work. Comfort is on the menu, and the recipes that are there are to be shared, but at the same time, persons could contribute further a dish that is familiar to them, a go-to dish when they feel that they need something nourishing. Also, you could see the responses to how different spices are identified with the shadow boxes, and exciting conversations have sparked from there. The kitchen, or the original idea of what hearth means, is usually the center of the home. And so it was quite nice to see the coming together of my practice and ideas that I've been working on to allow for the audience to encounter and experience what it could mean to talk about I love you in different ways, rather than simple utterances of the 3 words. My intention for this show is for members of the public to come to this space and find comfort and a sense of familiarity about the home, for example. So the exhibition has been organized so that you're introduced to the talismans that I have of the different houses, and the beginning or introduction to my background and my ideas around this show. From there, you enter the space where you are introduced to different works that are looking at love languages, be it from the cut fruit shadow boxes to the particular rosette or sewing techniques that are made from scrap fabric pieces. And it's a communal space. There is a round table over here that will allow interested persons to sit contemplatively in a quiet manner and learn how to make these rosettes that then form a larger blanket, or even just to learn a skill such as this, because many of these sewing techniques are also vanishing traits. The experience in setting up space, setting up show for art outreach here has been particularly meaningful. It was a very conscious decision to submit to an open call and to have the show here when I had other venues options available. To me, this particular program, the Hearth program, speaks to a more exploratory, experimental possibilities, and that's really quite exciting, because even as an artist who has been practicing for a while, it is really about the freedom to be experimental, to be process-based, to fail again, fail better. Because to me, every experimentation or failure even is a learning experience, and one gets better. I wish there's more spaces like this, and so that younger or not so young artists could also have the opportunity to work out their own thought processes and have a better understanding or clarity about their positioning. I've had the privilege of working with Annie J. Kwan as a curatorial advisor, and of course we had conversations for this part 1 of the show, and part 2 will happen in a larger scale, in another space, another destination. But it was quite lovely to also know that this space allows for the kind of flexibility with the moving partitions, and for us to think through how to conceptualize a space that would allow for different ideas to come forth. Both of us were quite agreeable to editing out certain elements. I could have shown like 5 other works, but for the particular concept, it is really about love languages and what could pull things together. So the partitions, the equipment, and the support from the Art Outreach team has been incredible that way. My upcoming projects are quite a few lined up. So one of which is, of course, the solo show part 2 that we're hoping to push through. There will be more stories that are collected and documented via larger video productions, and also publications and writing, and looking at ways to have more participatory workshops that will involve a wider outreach to the communities wherever we may be. Another project that I'm very excited about is a traveling show, a 3-part, 3-country project that will be in Seoul, Singapore and Sarawak. And it is also a continuation about small things. The title is called Small Things, but it's really about how in today's context when we have to shift a lot, what are the little things that we can bring with us to make it more homely.